One nice feature of Liferay 6.2 and Liferay Set is the templating system. This lets you change the way that Portlet displays its data. So you don't have to create custom portlets every time you want to do some customization. They're written in Freemarker language or in Velocity, although Freemarker is currently preferred. So they're fairly easy to work with. You know, even relatively unskilled developers could use a templating system. So first of all, we're going to have a look at this in terms of the asset publisher. We'll just look at there's some built-in templates, but you can create your own templates fairly easily as well. So here we see the asset publisher. Asset publisher is basically a kind of configurable search portlet. You can't type in search terms yourself, but you can predefine assets, content that you want to search on, and it will display those as a list in this case. But if you don't like that, very simple display. So if you click on these, they're links. So it's a bit like the results from a search engine, and then you can see the actual content it's linked to. But if you don't like the way that displays, there are different options. If you go into display settings, you can see there are different templates that you can select. So rather than table, we could have an abstract view. And abstract view means that you see title and a little snippet, in this case a thumbnail, or here we have some content. So that's quite nice, and you can write your own within the limitations of the data that's available to display. You can also fairly easily change the styling as well if you don't like the fonts, things like that. You do that under look and feel, and there's a number of options here. You can change title, text styles fairly easy to change, bolding, etc., colours, spacing, background style. So you can do quite a lot of customization here, and you can also put in your own CSFs if you want. So for example, if I wanted to style all the fonts that occur in the portlet div tag, I can do that by entering this entry. And save that and close, and you can see now within this portlet all of the fonts are in Comic Sans. Okay, let's say I want to develop something, my own application display template. We're going to have a look at an example, and the example I've chosen is a carousel. Now you say, why would I want to develop a carousel in the asset publisher when there's already the out-of-the-box carousel portlet? Well, the thing about the asset publisher is it can work with the audiencing engine, Liferay audiencing engine, which is a fairly neat tool. It lets you display different contents based on certain attributes and behaviours of users. So you could have different sets of images that are going to be shown to one class of user compared to another class of user. So the first thing we want to do is we'll do this actually via the front end. If we go into display settings and back to our display templates, we can actually create a new template here directly. And click on plus. It's not, there we go, not particularly fast. We'll call this carousel. We're going to use the Freemarker language. You can use Velocity, but Freemarker is what they recommend. This is a simple carousel, and you can have a little icon to represent your carousel if you want. And these are the fields that you have available to work with. So for different portlets, you have different sets of fields that you can work with. Here basically the asset publisher goes away and selects based on its search criteria a set of assets that you can then loop over and do something useful with. So now the best way to work with this is actually to keep your code in a file, otherwise this template is stored in the database. So if you want to put it into versioning, keep it in a file and then just use the browse option to go and upload the file where you've got your template. So we'll start off with a very simple example. This is in the best style, something I wrote earlier, and I'll just show you how to loop over entries. So we say basically, if our list of entries that the asset publisher has returned has some content, then we will loop over the list of entries, getting each entry in turn, and just put in the end of that. Now, what can you do with an entry? Well, you can get the title. So we'll do pretty much what one of our current templates does, and just display a title at this point. So I save that. The best way to work is to work on a separate screen and use save and continue. So I'll do that, and I'll open up a new browser, and I'll actually need to select that. So in configuration, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'll create a new page called carousel, and I'll just make a single column, add that to my site, and I'll add a new asset publisher in there. So that's good. You can see all of the content that's available. We've not done any filtering on this, and I'll change the display template from abstract to my carousel. Save that, close that, and you can see all we're doing is getting a list. So we're if we go back to the actual code, which is here, all we do is, if we've got content, we loop over the content and we display content title in bold. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. Now, if we want to display images, we can get images from the render request using the renderer get URL image preview message. So what we're going to do is put this bit of code in there now. So basically, the only content we want to look at are file entries, so images, basically. And here we'll create a list. Well, we're going to put in the list element, so we'll need to put in a UL here. Unordered list. And for every list item, we're going to display. We're going to grab the URL to the image within the Liferay repository, and we're going to enclose that in an image tag. And we'll also use the title as our title, our image title as the title. So save and continue, and you'll see now. Oh, there's an error in there somewhere. Let's see, we can see what that is. You know what? We haven't actually, we need to do a couple of assignments which I didn't copy from my code. Every time we loop through, we need to assign the renderer to the current entry's asset renderer. That's fairly obvious, because if we don't do that, we don't have this object here, and this object has to correspond to the asset renderer of the current entry. And we also want the am I using the class name? I'll see later. So save that. So now we're printing a list of all of the images that we have inside our repository. So the final step, I want to do this in a fairly simple way without creating lots of CSS and stuff like that. And I discovered this minimal content carousel implemented in JavaScript, and I just copy and paste all of that. I'll show you how that works. This will actually, so it's not something I wrote. This will actually do our carousel. So it takes a set of images and displays them one at a time by some JavaScript, CSS, div magic. So basically all it says is we have to include this JavaScript, wrap our images within inside a carousel div tag, and down here we've got a little initialization for the script, and here we say what the div tag is, whether it's to be autoplayed, and what the delay is between showing each image. And you'll see that we've now changed our asset publisher to work as a carousel. Okay, that's great. What about if we want to have that targeted using the asset targeting? Well, with the asset publisher, you have another configuration option over here. Use segments filter, and that says it will use user segments filter, so it will actually filter on user segments you've configured. What that means is that for different users have different characteristics. So you can see now this user, who I'm logged on as at the moment has no user segments, matches no user segments. If I simulate another user, going to users and organizations, and I simulate Mick, and go to my carousel, you'll see that I'm seeing images from this little set. Why is that? Because if I look at these images, see how they're audienced. So going to content, it's just images that I'm displaying, they're in the carousel. And if I look at this image, you'll see that they're audienced on user segment HPI. And if I go into my audiencing configuration, audience targeting, and have a look at this user segment, maybe it's probably easier to edit that. Problem with the display there. You can usually see this with Liferay at the moment. Here we go. You'll see that the rule that's configured is that the user has to be a member of the Hewlett-Packard organization. And if I have a look at, go back to, yeah, that's okay. Go back to Mick. You'll see that he is a member of the Hewlett-Packard organization. Let's simulate Anna here. Go into the carousel, and we see for the exact same carousel we're seeing different data, so it's targeted to different users. Why am I seeing this for Anna? Well, let's have a look at one of the images, hands-free scanning and copying. And have a look at the content, documents and media, some of my carousel images. Well, that was one of them there that Anna was seeing. It's targeted to the IUT segment. What's the IUT segment? You can target to more than one user segment if you want as well. So it's 0 or more. And if I edit that, Well, in fact, it says it's IUT's individual urban trend. It's come from the Experian marketing firm. And it's basically targeting female 18 to 35 years old, upmarket users, so professional type users. And if I look at Anna, there we go, born 1992, so that makes her about 25, 26, 25 years old, and female, so that fits in job accounts exec, so that fits exactly into the profile. So what's happening is when Anna connects to or views that page, we go back to that, I'll just explain that. I'm going to impersonate Anna again. We go back to our carousel. When Anna views this page, this asset publisher is using audience targeting. These images are targeted to the female 18-25 professional category. When Anna connects to the site, she's connected, so it knows who she is, and it looks at her user attributes to see what user segments she matches. She matches the IUT, so that uses a filter to show, to decide what content is going to be shown or not shown. So there you have it. So we've had a quick look at creating a audience targeted carousel. So it's looking at application display templates and a little bit of audience targeting in Liferay, which we've covered in a separate video.